culture is everything. And as a coach, if you're not invested in it, so culture isn't talking about it and saying, oh, we've had a great culture or we have a culture. If you don't invest in it with the players, if you don't teach them things, if you don't have conversations, hard conversations, it will die. The culture will not continue. It just won't. You can't rely on your players only. It is that way. And I think the top led, our kids bought in and led, but you have to be invested in it.
Whether you live northeast, west, or south, the best fast pitch info comes from the coach's mouth. Welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast with your hosts, Jay Bolden and Ken Kraus.
Yes, everyone, welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast. We're happy to be talking to you today. We've got a very special guest, so we're looking forward to that. Jay, did want to check in with you a little bit. Do you have anything special going on this weekend?
So my youngest, our 11U kind of semi-travel developmental team is supposed to be playing on Sunday, but I don't think we're going to dodge the weather. It's supposed to rain up here, and so we'll probably get washed, but it's kind of a good thing, I guess, because my oldest daughter, Layton, who has Down syndrome, we have the buddy walk out here.
Nice.
We've got some family in town. My mother-in-law, father-in-law are in town. My mom and dad are going to come, and some of Layton's friends, and they come and support her and the other kids in our area from all over here that have Down syndrome. We're going to go walk, and we've raised some money for them and all that stuff. So we're excited about it. It's a great weekend. How about yourself?
I've got kind of a quiet weekend, no outdoor lessons, so, easy tomorrow. Today, actually doing a little surprise birthday party for one of my neighbors. Yes, it is a surprise party, but by the time this comes out, it'll have already happened, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag.
That's awesome.
Yeah, other than that, going to watch the Bears play.
Oh, boy. I gave up on that a long time ago, so, yeah. But I'll tell you what, I was excited to watch Louisville beat Miami last night. That was a great game, so It was good. And the reason I say that is because my wife is from Louisville and my in-laws are in town, so we're watching that game. That was a great game. And I'm actually headed down there next weekend to go to a game, I'm super excited about that as well, too. I love college athletics. It's so awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll be fun.
So speaking of college athletics, Ken, do you want to talk about this amazing guest that we have on? I know I am super stoked to have her, and I know you're excited as well, too. Why don't you tell some people or give some people some information about our amazing guest?
All right. Well, certainly it's not every day you get to speak to a member of multiple halls of fame, so we feel privileged to have the opportunity to spend time with our guest today. As a player at Heron High School in Illinois, she was considered one of the top 3 pitchers in the state, compiling a career record of 65-7, and in 1992 was named to the Heron Hall of Fame. She continued her winning ways at the University of Evansville, where our guest is still the top pitcher in Purple Aces history. She holds multiple records at the school, including pitching wins, innings pitched, complete games, and shutouts, while also being third all-time in career ERA with a 1.62 mark. She graduated with a degree in accounting, so she was sharp on the academic side as well. She was later inducted into the U of E Hall of Fame in 1994. After her playing days, our guest joined the coaching staff at Southeast Missouri State as a graduate assistant while earning her master's in business administration. She then went on to Southern Illinois University, where she became an assistant coach for the Salukis under longtime coach Kay Brechtelsbauer, including 5 seasons as pitching coach before taking over the program from the SIU legend in 2000. Our guest quickly established herself as a legend herself. Over her 23-year run, she compiled a record of 751 wins against 413 losses and 1 tie, making her the winningest coach not only in Southern Illinois softball history, but also the entire athletic program. Her many accomplishments include posting 18 30-win seasons, including 4 seasons with 40 wins, 8 NCAA tournament appearances, 6 Missouri Valley Conference titles, and being a member of 5 MVC coaching staff of the Year. In 2022, she stepped down as head coach of the SIUCs, but remained on as an advisor to the program. The accolades didn't stop, however, as that year she was also enshrined in 2 more Halls of Fame, the SIU Hall of Fame and the NFCA Hall of Fame. She didn't stay out of the coaching ranks for long, however, as in 2025, she became a volunteer assistant at nearby John A. Logan Community College in Cartersville, Illinois. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm From the Coach's Mouth podcast welcome to the incredible Kerri Blaylock.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome, Coach. We're super excited to have you today. So we're going to jump right in, Kerri. I want to get after it with you today. We don't want to take up too much of your time, so we want to make sure we can get to just about everything we can. So you've had such a legendary career at SIU, and now you continue to impact the game at John A. Logan. Can you walk us through your journey a little bit from player to coach, your NFCA Hall of Famer, SIU Hall of Famer? What keeps that passion going for you to continue to give back to the game?
The kids. I mean, obviously, when I was a player, as Ken mentioned, I was at Heron High School, and I had a guy who actually coached my brother in football was our softball coach, and he's now an Illinois high school Hall of Famer, but he spent all this time just learning about the game. So if you grew up in Heron, you were going to need to be a pitcher. I wanted to be a catcher. My dad told me, he was very, very honest, awesome man, that, he said, "Sis, you can't really hit and you don't run very well. So maybe I think if you want to play Division I softball, maybe we should try pitching." So he was so smart, and I'm like, all right, we'll do it. So anyway, that led to then college. And when I was in college, I'll be honest with you, like Ken said, I got a degree in accounting. I thought I was going to be an accountant. And I had a job already in Carbondale lined up. And the head coach at Southeast Missouri State said, "Hey, would you like to get your master's?" I had no concept this could even be done. You could be a GA, you could go on to coach. And so asked my mom and dad, "Hey, can you foot the bill a little bit longer? Help me out." They said yes. Went over there, and as soon as I did it, I was hooked. So I think for me, it was impacting young people. I love it. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love competing. And so this was a way that I could do all of that. And so I think for me, it's when I decided I wanted to do it, Coach Brechtelsbauer gave me this opportunity, which I say this, I thank her for my entire path, because if it wasn't for her hiring me on a $5,000 salary that she begged the administration to give me at that time, I wouldn't have never done it. But what keeps me going with it is definitely teaching and impacting young women and just helping them, the relationships you build, but also teaching them how to be productive in life. I mean, this game is a microcosm of it. So I would say that's what kind of keeps me going with it.
So looking back at your early coaching career, what lessons shaped you in the way that you became a coach at SIU when you took over?
I honestly think that I was so my high school coach, Coach Bruce Gillak, he was a life mentor. I mean, we were a bunch of, girls, and he treated us like football players, which was kind of awesome. Like we learned a lot from him, but he shaped us in, hard work, unselfishness, honesty, accountability. I mean, I learned all of that from him, and it was no making excuses. So that's what I try to pass along, are those life lesson type things that then impact the kids on a different level because they translate to the game. And so we talk a lot about a lunch pail, hard hat lunch pail mentality, about nobody's going to outwork us. We're going to be servant leaders. We're going to do everything right, from picking up the dugout to, how we put on our shoes, to how our locker room looks, to what we do in the classroom. And it all discipline translates outside of competition to competition.
I would say too, like, not only are those great softball lessons, but they're just great life lessons, right? I mean,
for sure,
life isn't always sunshine and roses, and we have to learn how to get through some of those hard times, and without having that discipline, I think that, and I think that's, Ken and I talk about this all the time. I think that's some of the things that are kind of missing in today's youth sports. There's, you see everybody jumping from team to team and there's no loyalty and discipline. And that's great that you brought that up too. I want to talk to you a little bit too, Kerri, because I know you've had some amazing assistant coaches that were with you when you took over the job. So who were some of your assistants that helped you get that SIU program to such high standards that you had kind of over the years? I know you've had a few former gentlemen that played men's fast pitch, I believe, down there. I know it was a big thing. So some of them,
sure.
Didn't you have Christy too, who was at St. Louis University, who was a fantastic coach in her own right.
So when I started the program, my first hire was a guy by the name of Buddy Foster. And Buddy he's been the head coach at Bradley. He's been an assistant at Kansas, an assistant after us at SIUE. But anyway, he and I were friends since we were probably 13 years old. His sister and I played summer ball together. So Buddy is someone that I talk to multiple times a week. As right now, he's 60, I'm 59. We still talk multiple times a week. So when I started the program, I knew he was who I wanted. So I made a tough call. He was at SEMO with Coach Richmond at the time. I made a tough call. I said, Coach, I want to talk to Buddy about filling our position. I want him to help me start this, to start my head coaching career. So Buddy was with me, and those early years were just fantastic. We went to a Sweet 16 back in the day. They didn't have a 4-team regional. They had 8-team regionals. There were no supers. So we ended up in the finals, one game away from the College World Series against the University of Alabama. He helped me there and then helped me until he took the Bradley head job. When he took that, then I hired Christy Canoyer, because for me, it was always about trust, people that I knew. So Christy was with me then for another 2 regionals, I believe. She was with me, and then she took the head job at St. Louis University. And then I hired Jen Sewell, who's now the head coach at SIU. So I had 3 quality first assistants, but then it was also important for me to hire people in support roles. And most of those were former players. Katie Wagner, Kelsey Gonzalez, Kenzie Bennett, Maddie Vermajon. These were all players of mine who then stayed and helped us coach. And I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but at my age, sometimes I forget. But I mean, those people, Haley Gorman, they're people that would help us as student assistants and keep it with it. So I had a lot of great assistants.
So were these people that wanted to go into coaching, or did were they like you, where they had a career path going and you kind of redirected them into something that became their passion?
My first assistants were all coaching. My second assistants are all out of coaching now. So, a couple of them are in the business world in Chicago. One is doing private pitching lessons down here and has a great career. One of them was a teacher and now helps manage a golf course. So, I mean, it's like, the first assistants were all coaches. The second assistants were just people, again, that it was very important to me. It's just a trust factor. I didn't really hire anybody outside of my circle, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Yep, definitely does.
So I was going to ask you, a lot of our listeners don't know, but I was there at Carbondale, basically 93 to 98. And I remember seeing the field during that time. Can you give our listeners a little idea of how the facilities have changed down there in Carbondale? Since that time.
So when I first got hired there, if anybody's been to Carbondale, it's just Grand Avenue is a main street that goes by the rec center, et cetera. So we were in a little corner of a parking lot. So we barely had bleachers. I can remember my mom and grandma sitting on lawn chairs, and I was afraid my grandma was going to get swiped by a car coming by, right? So then we didn't have bathrooms. You had to walk across the street to the bathroom. Then we got these concrete dugouts there that were beautiful, but they built them on this. The fences were 250. We laugh all the time, So I guess
and of course those fences are 250 in a day when games were 1-0 or 2-1 most of the time.
You got that right. And so then there was a Title IX complaint filed, and I will say this: that SIU handled it awesomely. They didn't have to handle it the way they did. It was an anonymous, we call it our 20, back then stamps were 25 cents. It was a 25-cent miracle, right? That and SIU did not have to handle it the way they did. They did a great investigation and they determined that we needed something. So then it became a $2.5 million stadium with locker rooms and a press box and TV capabilities and batting cages. And it went from the outhouse, how do they say it, to the uptown, right? We were, the kids had some place to, it just changed the trajectory. I will say that 2003 team, most of them that ended up one game away from the World Series were recruited to that old field. They were not recruited to that new field. The university did a fantastic job. The university chancellor at the time, board of trustees, our athletic director, everything was top notch.
Yeah, I remember my oldest daughter, Stephanie, was going to SIU at the time. And I remember seeing them breaking ground and building that stadium was right outside the dorms. She could see it from her window.
Yes.
And, it was an amazing thing to see going up, especially at that time, because there weren't that many great stadiums around. So
no,
that was kind of I would imagine in the MVC, that was kind of the premier stadium for a while, at least.
Us in Wichita State for sure. And they were still in the MVC at the time. But yes, it was and it's still really, honestly, it still is. I mean, it's still, one of the best in the Midwest for sure.
You built SIU into one of the most consistent performing programs in the whole area. What were the foundations of that? How did you take that program and really get it to play at that level? What was different about what you did?
I think those recruits early on, it was Coach B. We had great teams in the 90s. Coach B did a great job. We won a championship and won a conference championship in 91. And, it was recruiting, and it's those players. They came in, they bought in immediately. And I was, it was going to be, like I said, we were going to run the program how we were going to run the program. We got some great kids from the St. Louis area and from Southern Illinois and from Chicago and from Indiana. And we recruited regionally. They bought in, they came, and we just had a run that was just magical. And, it started with those kids, honestly, in 2000 when I took over. And then 03, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to back, all those regionals, but those were all those kids. I had 3 sisters from the same family, a set of twins. I had multiple kids from the same summer organizations. And that's kind of what I would do. I would kind of go to summer organizations and I got a bunch of Chaos kids out of St. Louis. I got a bunch of Tennessee Fury kids and it went a bunch of Indiana Magic kids. And it just kind of went like that. And they were the building blocks, the players. Coaches don't win ball games. All this stuff and everything you read, it means nothing without those kids.
So I did want to ask you, you had some of the top prospects in the country. You were able to recruit them to SIU. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could have gone to an Alabama or to a Florida or to, UCLA, places like that. How did you get those kids there? What was the attraction to SIUC?
Well, I hope that it was relationship based. I am not a transactional coach. There are a lot of transactional coaches out there. What can you do for me? What can you win for me? I don't want to have a personal relationship with you. I don't really care to get in to know your family or whatever. Those kids to this day are family. I still talk to a lot of them. I was on the phone yesterday with one of the greats. She works for the PGA Tour right now, and we're talking because she's going to the Vanderbilt LSU game today. So I think it's a relationship build that my assistants and myself got to know them. And then we sold Carbondale, the campus, the family atmosphere, what you could do there. We sold, hey, you could maybe go sit on the bench at a Power 5. Why don't you come here at a mid-major, and why don't you make us great? And some of those kids, early kids, we beat the LSUs and the Florida States and, the Michigans, and we competed. You mentioned probably one thing. I got a pitcher that I recruited tooth and nail against Northwestern. And she was from a little town just north of here, an hour north of here. And she came here. She threw 71, 72. Her name was Amy Hari. And that picture kind of then led to, that team being built. And, we got more pitching and more great defenders. And, like I said, we just got several kids that really made a difference.
Yeah, as a business major, that's the concept of the lead goat, right? You get that lead goat and get the others to follow the way in. Yep.
Kerri, I want to talk because I've seen you interact with your players, and just seeing you down there when I was down there in Carbondale. Culture is such a buzzword today. Like, what does program culture mean to you, and how did you instill it year after year? And I want to say this too. Going down there after you stepped down, I still see you at some of the games down there, sitting on the hill over there by the ramp of the bridges. And so there's definitely still a piece of that culture with you for SIU there, even though you've kind of moved on. So what was the culture like there at SIU? What did it mean for you?
Well, it's everything. And it's, when I again, this is the lessons that I learned from my high school coach. Again, we talked about immediately that how we did anything was how we're going to do everything. So we were going to excel. We won several. I'm just as proud of the academic awards we won, top 10s in the country. We were good in academics. We were great in the community. We were great with people. And they were going to buy into the accountability factor, like I said, the hard work factor. It is a buzzword, but there were repercussions. We laugh to this day. About how back in the day, there were no cell phones, right? And there was no text messaging, right? So they did not want to get a call left on their physical answering machine, the old home answering machine from me. If I knew they did something, they missed a workout or they didn't, being early. Jay, Ken, I've left a kid. I left a kid who's an awesome kid. She's not a kid anymore. She's a mom and she has children of her own, but I left her and she called me, and when I got to the hotel in Atlanta and she's like, Coach Blaylock, I'm like, I know, buddy, but you weren't at the bus. Right. So there's just life lessons. I got a call from one of my former players is an FBI agent. And she called me the other day. And I don't know if you've seen the viral video of Kara Lawson, the head coach at Duke. And she's talking about how to do hard with her team. It's a 2-minute clip. And the kid said, thank you for teaching me how to do hard. This is why I'm at the FBI, so it's not just me, but it's the other assistants. And we taught the kids how to survive and do things. Culture is everything. And as a coach, if you're not invested in it, so culture isn't talking about it and saying, oh, we've had a great culture or we have a culture. If you don't invest in it with the players, if you don't teach them things, if you don't have conversations, hard conversations, it will die. The culture will not continue. It just won't. You can't rely on your players only. It is that way. And I think the top led, our kids bought in and led, but you have to be invested in it.
I want to springboard off that real quick too. Just a quick question. So I just went to Illinois State this last weekend, and I saw Melinda's sitting in the bleacher watching the game, and then I was at Carbondale, and I'm seeing you sit there by the bridge. Is it hard for you guys to go back there and not be like, I want to coach again, or is it easy and you just take that sense of pride and you just watch and that? Is that hard to just sit there now after all those years?
I'll be honest. I wasn't at a game last year. I haven't been there in a couple years, but it's, I watch from afar. I think, I want that team to succeed. I want them to win, but you know what? That's not my team anymore. And I'm just happy. I did what I could for that program while I was there. And now it's somebody else's turn. And I'm happy because I recruited. There's still, 2 or 3 kids that are still on that team that I recruited. So I'm happy for them. I want them to do well. No, I wouldn't say anything's ever hard because you know what? When I walked away and I was happy with the work that I helped do with those kids.
When you do go back, do you sit out there in the bad parents section? The one where you can say things under your breath and nobody's going to have to listen to it.
I mean, I did see you in right field, Kerri. I did see you all the way back.
Yeah, I was out there. I was out there in 23. You're right. I was out there.
So when you talk about building culture, were there some things? I think a lot of coaches would like to build a culture, but don't necessarily know how and want to do the team building thing. Were there some particularly memorable things that you did as far as team building or just getting everybody on the same page? Maybe some fun things that you did.
Well, I think later in my career, we have a sports psychologist on campus, Dr. Julie Partridge, and we would use her. We read some books, What Drives Winning, things like that as a team. But I think it started day one, Ken, when I would sit with the kids and we would break it down. We would have returners in a meeting. We would have newcomers in a meeting before they went to their first day of class. And I would explain basically my non-negotiables. I didn't have a written rule sheet, but these were non-negotiables that the kids knew, and they were held accountable to that. I mean, I've had to not play a really good player to make a point, and I never yelled well, that's a lie. I did yell.
You were a coach. Let's be honest.
That's a lie. That's a lie. I guess my punishment was never like a bunch of. It would be game time. It would be practice time. It would be playing time. I had a freshman one time, and she is now a physician assistant in an orthopedic place. Smart, great kid. And she didn't go to study table. And so she's from Tennessee. And I remember I told her, I said, okay, it was a fall game. And I said, you're not to dress. You just come in street clothes. And she said, ma'am? And I said, street clothes. Ma'am, what is street clothes? And I said, you're not wearing your uniform today. And so we laugh about that, but it's just, you've got to do the hard thing sometimes and teach a lesson to then get them to understand. But what I hope that we did, we had such a relationship that they wanted to do the right thing. And so again, I'm sure sometimes they didn't like me, but I had my former player that coaches with me at John A. She's my head coach. She's like, man, you were hard on me early, but it taught me, it taught me what to do the right way and to do things. And we have such a relationship now. I just love being around her and her family. And so I think it's just doing those hard things and sticking with them and creating time for those kids.
You had such a long and great career at SIU. And then what inspired you to continue that coaching journey at John A. Logan?
Well, I thought, sometimes I don't want to go into detail, but sometimes you think you get out of something for a reason and then you realize that wasn't the reason, And so I guess maybe thought I was done coaching for one reason, but in reality, I still had a lot to give. And so I took that year off. And Taylor immediately, my former player, Taylor Seifert at John A., was on me immediately. Hey, would you come help? Would you come help? And I said, buddy, let me just have some time. So I went out and I sat and I watched her play, the team play, because I told her if I got back into it, I wanted kids that were invested and wanted to do it the right way and played hard for her, etc. And so I went and watched and I thought, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. I had the best time last year because of these young people want to get to the next level. They work so hard. They're great kids. They do things the right way. Taylor, it's been fun because I'm not in charge. I don't want to be in charge. I know a lot of people who have known me from the past might say, how in the world is she not wanting to take over? And I don't. It's been such a breath of fresh air. She tells me what to do. And she'll ask questions and, I mentor her more on how do you deal with today's generation? How do you talk to them? How do you love on them a little bit? How do you, not get so frustrated? So it's given me a new perspective and challenge. I've loved every minute of it.
So with such a long career, especially in one place, not just as a head coach, but also an assistant, how did you balance kind of the traditions and maintaining those things and kind of the way you had done things with the way the game changed? How did you manage to adapt to all of that?
It's different. It's funny, Ken, a lot of people will ask me, how I go a lot on gut, a lot on instincts, a lot on things. And I realize there's so many other tools now. But if you can make the kids believe, especially pitching, I'm just going to use pitching, for example. My job is to make them in the circle think that they're the greatest thing that ever walked out there, because if they don't, they're not winning anyway. So, I mean, there's so many things that I relied on from the past that help me with the future. And I'm still connecting with an 18-year-old kid. I still do. You can do that. It doesn't always have to be about Rapsodo, and it doesn't always have to be about, all of these tricks and trades. Do I use them, or would I use them? Absolutely. But there's a human element to all this that people better not forget.
Ken and I have been saying that. I'm glad you said that, Kerri, because Ken and I have said that over and over and over again, right? Like, ball flight data is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But if you can't get anybody out with it, doesn't mean really anything, right? I mean, everybody has those pitchers that they may not have the best ball flight data, but they have one pitch that people just can't touch, right? And I think, and that's that gut instinct, that human piece that you're talking about there, that we can't put an analytic on. And I think we get so analytical because baseball's analytical and softball has to follow suit. And again, even in baseball, there's still that human component of that adrenaline and that rush. So thank you for saying that, because Ken and I have been saying that forever. Like, it's just, sure, do we use the data with our kids too? Absolutely. But we use it as a tool to help us then help coach that kid, right? Like, it's not, we shouldn't be, well, your ball flight data says you got to do this, so you can't throw that, you better throw this pitch, right? Like, it's, thank you for saying that. That's
well,
fantastic.
I think it's interesting because I coached with Dave King. I don't know if you guys know Dave out of, he's with Triple Crown Sports. He created, so the big tournaments in Colorado. Anyway,
oh, yeah.
He puts together a team. We go to the Canada Cup, so we take a team of college all-stars. So this year, my pitching staff was Ruby Malin, Tegan Cavan, Cassidy Curd, Maddie Agroff, Ashley Rogers, Courtney Coppersmith, right? So we're talking about people, Sam Lincoln, we're talking about kids, the best of the best. So the human element allows me to relate to them just as much as I can relate to an 18-year-old freshman at John A. Logan Junior College. And that's what I think they'll tell you. I had such a great relationship with those kids, those young women. I should quit saying kids, those young women in Canada, as I do here. We had all the analytic data in Canada, but we still had to get to the crux of how do we beat Team Canada, and how are we going to do that? And how do we, so it's the human element is a huge part.
Yeah, it's funny too, because sometimes just it's the thrill of seeing something that maybe you weren't expecting. And last night I was working with a pitcher, and she was doing. I said, "Okay, let's go to your curveball." And she throws her first curveball, and man, that thing just late broke like crazy. And even I was like, "Holy smokes, that was something!" I felt bad for her mom catching on the other end. And then she did it again, and she did it again. It's like, wow, this is amazing. I hope you do that tomorrow in your game. But it's just, do you still find that when you get somebody, you work with somebody, and all of a sudden it just kind of comes together for them, and you get this rush?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I still I stopped calling the game maybe my last couple of 3 years at SIU. And I was calling the game in Canada to win the Canada Cup with Tegan Cavan on the mound. And I'm like, why did I do that at SIU? Why did I stop? What was the anxiety of stopping, right? When you have the capability to do something, but calling pitches is still a rush for me, and helping those kids like see a pattern and playing chess with a batter and
yes,
helping them figure out what is good for them, what makes them tick, So yeah, absolutely. Love helping, love being in the bullpen, all that stuff.
I was just going to ask, as long as you're talking about that with the Canada Cup and working with those girls and young women, sorry, now I'm doing it. You're working with those young women. How coachable were they? I mean, you're there, for a few games in a single tournament, then they're going to go back to wherever it is they go back to. How receptive were they if you said, hey, why don't you try this, or let's do this sequence instead? They
were unbelievable. It was an unbelievable experience this year and last year. It just gave me such a, wow, there are just great young women out there who, here I am. First of all, I came from a mid-major and now I'm working at a junior college, and we just had the best time in the bullpen, and they're awesome. And I think they see that they're receptive, they're competitors, they want to know the tricks of the trade, they're respectful. It was just a phenomenal experience.
I feel like a lot of the players that are in this sport feel that they can learn from everybody, right? I think that's another thing Ken and I say all the time is like, you got to learn something from everybody. Everybody's a piece to your puzzle. And when you take certain pieces from different people. And so I think kids at that level, we think that, they think they know it all, but I think they're more receptive to actually learning stuff from everybody instead of just hearing one voice all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to talk about this since you're talking about the bullpens, Kerri. Run us through a bullpen at John A. Logan. Like, what do you do? And then when you're done with that, if you don't mind, what do you see? What are the goals for John A. Logan moving forward?
So as far as a bullpen goes, I have different things that I'll do different days. We may focus on different pitches. So sometimes I learned this from Michelle Smith a long time ago. I'll do what I call ladders with them. So we may throw 6 of it, 5 of it, 4 of it, 3 of it. We'll switch gears as we go along. We may have a day where right now in the fall, we're breaking it down where yesterday one of them may work, rise, curve, drop today. Another one may work change. I'm not a great fan of a screwball. We throw usually a hard inside cut fastball, so we may do different things like that. My workouts are about 40 minutes. We're very much at this level when they're coming to college. We're going to learn on the strike. We're going to learn work in the strike zone. We're going to learn on switching gears between pitches to work the strike zone. And then when we get specific, we work one pitch counts where I may say, okay, you have an 0-2. I want to see a rise ball, and I call it an 0-2, a fish pitch, a chase rise ball. And we work, you've got one pitch to make it work. Then we may work at bats. I kind of mix it up every day to give them to where it's competitive, to where they work on things. But the fall right now, October, November, we're really breaking stuff down. So this is our breakdown time where we're going to work on if they have a deficiency in a pitch, things like that. But when it's season, we're working getting ourselves ready for a game. As far as John A., I'm fortunate. I've got 5 great kids. We lost the pitcher of the year in our conference in our region last year. She's at University of Tennessee at Martin right now. But we've got 5 great kids, and, they all come to work. We use all of them. Good staff, and ready to, last year at Logan, we were 51-10. We lost in the IF game to go to nationals. So we feel like, we've got a good group, a lot of freshmen coming in. That's the thing. That's the thing that's different, Jay, about a 4-year school is I get freshmen all the time. So it's freshmen, you're constantly teaching, but no, great staff.
Well, yeah. And I would think that's the other thing too, is that at a 2-year school like that, there's constant turnover. It's freshman, sophomore, boom, out. Freshman, sophomore, boom, out. So you don't even get that chance. How do you build the culture there when there's so much turnover just naturally?
Yeah, we were talking about that. We did a little bit more this fall, a little bit more in our pre workouts before we started. We sat down with them. It's every day, Ken. It is. You're dealing, for me, if I was at Southern and I had a team of freshmen and sophomores all the time, it would be constant help and talking about it and teaching, calling it out in practice. A lot of things with me, body language is huge with me. I don't want, no matter how you feel, your body language is always going to be good, or I'm going to be telling you about it and it needs to be better. And so I work with body language, especially with the pitchers. And what helps us, I think, honestly, is you play a lot of D1s in the fall. So you get beat on a little bit and it toughens you up a little bit. I tell them all the time in the fall, I don't expect us to really win, but I expect us to compete, and I expect us to win innings. So can we win this inning? Can we win the next inning? What do we do? And they've really bought into that.
So what do you think is the biggest difference between coaching at the community college level and at the D1, the mid-major level?
I think for the head coach for Taylor, she does an amazing job recruiting. You better be able to identify talent that can help you win, and she does that. Her and her dad, one of our volunteers, and now a former SIU player, Riley Hamilton's helping her too. So I think recruiting's huge. I think development, like right now, Taylor's doing a great job in this off season. We're breaking it down where we just have a defensive day, where the infield, works for just an hour. The outfield works for just an hour. The next day we'll just hit. So we're really breaking down our skills to where we're getting better and seeing what our deficiencies are. I think that community college, the facilities, wow, John A. just built this multi-million-dollar indoor. It's just amazing what they've got over there for these kids. And so you can bring some talented kids in that then are ready. So I would say at the JUCO level, you better teach a lot of skill work, and you better just, you're teaching skill work all the time to get them ready.
Is it a tough sell to get a kid to go to John A. versus a 4-year school? And what draws them there?
We get a lot of local kids within a 2-hour area. Now there are some a little farther, but it's a good program. Taylor's been there. Stability. She's done a great job. It's a good school. They can get and we one of our kids from last year is now at St. Louis University and going to be a doctor. So you can get it. Doesn't the whole? I was telling somebody from the NCAA this the other day. The talk of JUCO being just for poor academic kids is not the case anymore. It's a building block. And especially if the NCAA gives this 5th year of eligibility to Division I's, you could go 2 there, 3 at a D1. You're rounded out. You can get some of your core classes out of the way. But the other big thing is, to both of you, you can play immediately. I used to tell kids all the time, I don't know if I see you playing as a freshman at Southern. Maybe you should go to a JUCO and play for a year or two. Don't sit on the bench. And then you're ready to go. So it's just, it's an opportunity for, it's just a difference. Now, as far as their work ethic, what they bring, there is no difference between what the young ladies I coached at SIU and these young ladies at all.
Kerri, so I want to ask you, as someone who's spent so much time as a pitching coach and, kind of what you're talking about there, that opportunity to play right away. This goes to, even kids playing travel ball. Trying to think of how to phrase this. Just, you'll have a kid that's, maybe she's still in the development phase, so she's not quite as good. You got a coach that really wants to win, so he's going to put the ace on the field all the time. These kids are not getting many innings. They might get 2 innings in a weekend. Do you see that as something, do you feel like I do, that they tend to deteriorate then, and that maybe they would be better off in a team that perhaps doesn't play as high a level or doesn't try to win as much, to give them the opportunity to develop where they could play more at that higher level?
I don't think there's any question. And I think that I talk to my players at Southern about this all the time, especially the kids that weren't quite there yet. You have to be a great self-evaluator, and parents have to be a great an evaluator of their kids. There's no reason to go sit when you can play. You need to play to get yourself to where you're not sitting on those teams anymore, or you go to a mid-range team or a mid-level team or whatever it may be. I think to be able to play and to be able to compete is the most important thing. And I don't think sitting on the bench and getting 1 inning here or there is going to get you where you need to be. I just don't.
Yeah, and I'll agree. So even at St. Xavier, where I'm at, we have kids that will come back to us after spending a year or so at the Division I level because they just didn't get even time there, and they'll come back to us and they can make a huge impact on our program. I think this year we have 4 or 5 former Division I players that have come back to our program, and and I think their biggest thing is they just didn't get the innings or they didn't get the playing time, and I think, like Ken's saying, I think that kind of stalls development, right? We can do everything we can in bullpens and defensively, but they've got to be able to transition that over to the game. And that's kind of what I'm going through.
I think our number 1 last year got 2 innings at a Division I. She came back to JUCO, and give her props. She was a reclamation project because what had happened is mentally she was shot. So all I did was build her up. She had the skill. I worked with her at building her confidence, and she was 24-2, and she got a D1 scholarship again. But sometimes they go and they're kind of destroyed mentally, and it's just getting that belief back.
And I'm gonna jump on to the next question here, because you've kind of already talked a little bit of analytics, and I will touch on that one more time with you. But the biggest thing that, because we're talking about all of this stuff right now, what do you think some of the biggest challenges coaches face in the softball landscape today?
Oh, I'm sure for mid-majors, it's NIL and keeping and retaining your players. I think, honestly, I'm a big believer that God led me to where I needed to be, right? I probably needed to get out because this would be really hard for me to navigate all of this because of just the all-consuming type individual I am and the amount of time, you would need to try to maintain. So I think NIL is huge. I think recruitment and just dealing, to make sure you build your team. I think the university landscapes and how much money they have nowadays. So I think mid-major coaches have a big obstacle that they're facing. But I also see Power Fours because Power Fours go to other Power Fours. So I think some of this has got to settle down at some point. You know what I mean? Or we're going to we've always had the haves and the have-nots, but it's really going to be separate soon, right? But the cool part is, I think that schools like yours, Jay, schools like the junior colleges can start finding kids that are like, you know what? I can go here for a little while and try to make my way, especially in a community college, or maybe I don't need that anymore. It is a big challenge in today's athletic world.
It's funny, Kerri, you talked about, the blue collar lunch bucket mentality kind of thing. I remember seeing Patty Gasso after Oklahoma won its first national championship. And, people were asking her about it. And she said, yeah, the difference between us and the UCLAs and the Arizonas, we're a lunch bucket team. We just work really hard. We don't attract the top level prospects. We do this, and this is how we approach it. And it's just kind of funny to see how it's turned now, because I certainly think Oklahoma has its pick of the litter. But is there still a place for that lunch bucket kind of mentality? And can you win with that?
I do believe that. And I think it's, I'm fortunate because the last, I think 13 years, I've been what's called, I guess they term it the practice coordinator at the Women's College World Series. So I work back. I greet the teams when they come off the bus. I get all their equipment up, and then I work in the when they warm up, get ready pregame. And so I'm around a lot of coaches, and you see those teams prepare, and there aren't a lot of, I'm sure there's some prima donnas somewhere, but there are a lot of kids that just go to work and want to be better. And it's what really, I would come back to SIU. I come back to Logan and I say, hey, look, these kids put their shoes on and go to work. Like they're very dialed in, even these elite programs, they're not given anything. And I do see teams making it. I mean, James Madison made it, right, to the World Series. That's only been a few years ago. There are teams that just are the hardworking teams that get there that maybe don't have all the money. And there are still upsets, because what makes an upset is a good pitcher. So if you got a great pitcher, you're going to be able to compete.
I always love the mid majors going up against the ACC teams in the tournament. It's just it's definitely like, those are my favorites. I'm like, who's gonna knock who off here? So yeah, I love those I love it.
How do you help players handle adversity or failure or anything like that? I mean, it's a part of the game. It's certainly built into the DNA of the game. So, what do you do to help them with that?
It's so funny. We were just talking about this as a staff, because my head coach is 33 years old, and she's like, hey, Kerri, what do we do when when we're not hitting and we fail? And I said, you know what? It's just, again, I just go back, Ken, to communication, man. I'm going to go right up to him. We're going to talk about it. We're going to address the elephant in the room when you're slumping or when things aren't going right. And we're going to try to make it better for them, and we're going to talk about it and go to work. Now, there are skills. Again, if you're at a university with a sports psychologist, I would use that tool to the nth degree. I would provide that to the young ladies, and several pitchers and several position players at SIU would utilize Dr. Partridge and gain tools about how to breathe and how to, try to end the anxiety, because these kids, the main thing they need to understand is being a softball player is not who they are, it's what they do, right? So many of them thinks it's who they are as a person. Who I was a coach, that's not who I was. It's what I did for a living. And I knew that right away. And I think you got to get these kids to understand that.
Kerri, what advice would you give to young coaches who want to make an impact in this sport?
I would say that, I would try to learn so hard about not being transactional. They need to dive in, and they need to get to know their kids. They need to know what makes them tick. They need to understand who they are as people. They need to be okay with there being differences, and that all of them are not going to be the same personalities, and be okay with that. They need to go to work, and they need to recruit, and they need to get the right kind of kids, and they need to get the kids that will make that university proud and make them proud. And obviously, I understand winning, and winning's awesome. It is, but sometimes you go through some hard times to be able to win, and be okay losing. And what you learn, you can learn tons from losing, and always be able to do that.
So when you look back on your career, and all the accomplishments and everything, is there anything that particularly stands out, any moments or something, some great accomplishment that you had, or maybe it was just something really small?
I think the kids, the players' faces, when you're able to win that big win or some of the games, I would stand around and watch them. That made my day. I think seeing them graduate and get married and have kids and come back, those are the great moments. As far as a coaching moment, I would have to say, that Alabama regional will be in my heart forever and ever, because it was the first, and it was such a unique thing. And I'll look at pictures, and here Buddy and I are in khaki shorts and a cotton t-shirt. I mean, there was no logo, there was no Under Armour, Nike, we had a cotton t-shirt, and it was just the best experience. And so those are memorable things to me. And just it's so funny. I could be having just a day, where a down day, and I'll get a text message or a phone call, and it seems to happen right on point from a former player. And that's why I'm like, yeah, that's why I did that. That's why I became a coach. That's why I do what I do. And it's just the most rewarding thing in the world.
Awesome. So just a couple more questions for you, Kerri. We really appreciate your time today. This has definitely been an honor for me to talk to you, pick your brain.
Same.
How do you hope your players remember their time playing for you? You've already kind of talked about a little bit, but how do you hope it?
I hope that they feel like I learned something and I became a better person overall. I learned a lot about softball, but then what did softball teach me? I learned how to be on time. I learned how to go to class and give it my all. I learned how to be a good mom, or I learned how to, be a good coworker. I learned how to be a team player wherever I'm at. That's what I hope they got out of it.
So what's next for you personally? What continues to drive your love for the game and your interest?
I tell you, I'm so fortunate that I've, Dave King at Triple Crown. I work the Puerto Vallarta tournament. I'm not going to work it this year because there's only one weekend, but I go work in Puerto Vallarta. I go work the World Series every year. I go do the Canada Cup with Dave. I'm doing stuff at John A. I golf a lot. Love to golf.
Are you good at it?
I'm okay. I'm not good. I'm just okay. I'm okay enough that I don't throw my clubs anymore.
Well, you got me
travel,
beat then.
Travel and visit friends. I've got friends all over the country that are coaching. One coaches basketball, women's basketball. I got a buddy in Indianapolis. I'm kind of all over the place, and I just enjoy life. And, I think that's the biggest thing that now is that, like I said, I think I was led to leave when I left, and there was a reason for it. And I'm just in a fantastic place.
I have one more question for you, Kerri. And, this is kind of, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but you seem so, even keel. And, I love the answers that you're giving. But what would you say was the hardest thing for you to perhaps change or adjust in the way you approach coaching? Maybe something, things that you did early on where you went, you know what, that's really not what I should be doing. And I need to make some kind of a change.
Well, it's funny that you call me even keel, because most of my friends would not say I don't. And Ken, honestly, I would say that's the biggest change I've made over the last 3 years, is that I really wasn't even keel. I was a perfectionist. I was obsessed with making SIU the best it could be. I was all encompassed. I was enthralled. I was whatever. And what I learned was that I learned to step back. I learned to now I can talk to a player in this tone of voice and get the same point across. I do raise my voice still to this day, but I can still get the point across without coming unglued and without saying something that might be taken personal or something that may be considered an attack. So I'm pretty even keeled in that regard. I still am able to have tough conversations and get them to listen and get them to understand without going there. And I think I learned that. And my boss now, Taylor, who was my player, said to me, "When did you become so nice?" And I said, "Recently." I said, "Very recently." So I think another one of my former players said, "I always knew you loved me. Even when you were really saying some bad things, or I thought it was a bad thing, I knew you loved me." And I think that that's hopefully what those kids understand, is that down deep, that's what's most important to me, is that I care about them. And I think that any coach, that they need to know that you care, and then they'll probably run through a wall for you.
And how did you get to that point? What techniques did you use? If you were more excitable, a little louder at the time, how did you learn to
retirement
tamp that down?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think when you eliminate stress and you eliminate things from your life that were not good, and were, that you end up seeing the world in a big different way. And I think that that's what I did. I just, I retired, I got out of, and you just move on, and you get yourself in a really good place. And I'm 59 years old now, I'm age, and there's a lot of different things. Things I wish I would have done earlier in my career. But you know what? Again, I don't know. That's what learning is about. And that's why you're given opportunities. And I believe God gave me an opportunity to do something different and see the world in a different way. And I'm doing it, and I'm trying to take advantage of it.
Well, it certainly seems like it's working for you.
Awesome. All right, Kerri, thank you so much for today. Again, I can't thank you so much for being on here. It's a huge honor to talk to you, pick your brain a little bit too as well. And Ken feels the same way. So we are so happy that you joined us today. We don't want to take up any more of your time. Ken, anything else before we go?
No, I just want to say thank you to Kerri. We really appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks to all of you for listening and the kind words you've been sharing with us and posting us on Instagram. We saw that, Morgan. If you like what you're hearing, please remember to give us a like, leave a comment, and share this podcast on your social media channels. Make sure you never miss an episode by following us on your favorite podcast platform. If you're so inclined, you can also leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts to help more people find us. On behalf of the From the Coach's Mouth podcast, have a great rest of your week and weekend.